On November 4th, Californians will be voting on Proposition 8. Proposition 8 is a measure that would amend the Constitution to ban same-sex marriage in California. Why do we have to ban same-sex marriage by changing the Constitution? The reason we have to amend the Constitution is because we have to remove a fundamental right. Our Constitution now provides equal protection under the law to all citizens of California. That means the government can't discriminate against you based on your race, based on your gender, or based on your sexual orientation, among other things. So, banning same-sex marriage is a violation of people's constitutional rights. The only way to continue to violate somebody's constitutional rights is to change the Constitution to take away those rights. And that's what Proposition 8 would do. It would remove a fundamental right that is currently given to same-sex couples in California. This would be unprecedented. For example, in 1948, the California Supreme Court was the first in the country to strike down a ban on interracial marriage. Prior to 1948, blacks could not marry whites in California or in many other states in the country. The California Supreme Court said, no, that's a violation of people's equal protection rights, and the government can't block interracial marriage. Did Californians race out and amend the Constitution? No. If they had, we'd have a constitutional provision that said, marriage in California shall only be recognized if it's between two people of the same race. And we'd feel pretty stupid if that was our Constitution right now, wouldn't we? We'd be making the same mistake by passing Proposition 8 and writing hatred and bigotry into the Constitution. The Yes on 8 campaign has two major arguments that they've been airing in their commercials over the past couple of weeks. The first one deals with school, and the second one deals with churches. Let's talk about schools first. In Massachusetts, same-sex marriage has been legal for a couple of years. And some schools in Massachusetts have chosen, not because they're required to, but because they've chosen to teach students about same-sex marriage in the context of marriage overall. First of all, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing inherently wrong with same-sex marriage, and there's nothing inherently wrong with teaching children about it when they're exposed to it anyway, because their classmates are children of same-sex couples. But putting that aside for a minute, Massachusetts sets its own state law on education. California sets California law on education. So whatever happens in Massachusetts has no bearing on what happens in California. The superintendent of schools in California has gone on television and said that California schools are not required to teach students about same-sex marriage. That should be good enough. This is not Massachusetts. This is California. Besides, we already have civil unions in California, and it's probably harder to teach kids about civil unions than it is to teach them about marriage, if you don't want to answer a lot of uncomfortable questions, which seems to be the intent of the people who are arguing against teaching civil marriage to gays and lesbians in schools. The second argument deals with churches. The outcry from the Yes on 8 campaign is that churches will lose funding if they refuse to marry gays and lesbians. That's absolutely not true. That's a lie. Churches can marry or refuse to marry whoever they want. The marriage we're talking about with Proposition 8 is civil marriage, marriage that's recognized by the state of California, not by any particular religious institution. Religious institutions have been and will continue to be free to recognize or not recognize any marriage they want. Imagine, for example, today, an Orthodox Jewish synagogue that was asked to marry two Catholics in a Jewish ceremony. Probably the Orthodox rabbi would say, no, I'm not going to marry two Catholic people in my synagogue. Would the Orthodox synagogue lose its funding? No, it would not. They can choose to marry whoever they want, and they can choose to recognize a marriage or not recognize a marriage. The Catholic Church, for example, doesn't recognize divorce. To my knowledge, it hasn't lost any funding. Nothing is different about same-sex marriage. If churches want to recognize it, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. And to suggest that anybody would lose funding over that is fear-mongering and just an outright lie. Those are the major arguments the Yes on 8 campaign has. And I hope you understand now why they're both hogwash and I hope that you will vote no on Proposition 8 on November 4th.